Hi there, I'm Alec. When I was 8 years old, I met Seon-mi. She was my little sister's best friend who lived across the street. She was shy and always quiet. But when she looked at me, her big, brown eyes would sparkle. One day, my parents went to the village market and they left one instruction. Never, ever stray from the yard, okay?
There are ghouls and goblins in the forest, and the spirit in the river will take you if you try to cross the bridge.
But my sister was more adventurous than cautious, and as soon as our parents were out of sight, she dragged Seon-mi out the back door and through the hole in the bushes. Where are you going? Mom and Dad said to stay in the house. My sister laughed and turned around to jut her tongue out at me, and off she and Seon-mi went. I played on my phone, thinking nothing would go wrong, until I heard a scream. I rushed towards the river, and sure enough, my sister was on her knees, begging for help from anyone who could hear her screams. The bridge was centuries old and made of rotted wood, and Seon-mi was the unlucky one. She was dangling off of the bridge on one hand, and while the bridge was no higher than 2 men, the water underneath rushed into the sea like a raging flood. I grabbed Seon-mi's hand, but as soon as my fingers touched hers, she slipped, and she fell into the water. Up and down, her head went as she clawed at the water's surface, struggling to find her breath. I jumped in after her without hesitation. I was large even as a boy at 8, and I knew I would float without much effort. I caught her just before she lost consciousness, and I paddled harder than I ever had before, and we ended up ramming into a wayward branch from a fallen tree. When Seon-mi woke up, she realized what I'd done, and she couldn't stop hugging me as she cried. Years later, we found ourselves in the same high school. She was a freshman, and I was a senior. When Seon-mi jumped out of her parents' car to meet my sister, it was like time stood still. She changed so much in that one summer, and I fell in love. I meant to say hello, but as I held my hand out to greet her, someone came from behind her and swatted my hand away.
Get your hands away from my girl, you oversized piece of dough!
Jude Lawrence was the school's king. His father was a well-known congressman, and he strutted around campus as if he owned the place. Jude despised the fact that Seon-mi would always sit next to me at lunch. He grew so jealous that he made it his personal goal to ruin my life. He and his minions would drag me out of class, and the teachers could do nothing to stop him. They would make me stand in the corridor, and he and his friends would take turns kicking a soccer ball at me until I fell. They would have Seon-mi take videos, just to show me that I had no power, that I was a weakling. One day, when Jude caught Seon-mi helping me into the school infirmary, he pushed Seon-mi into a wall. I kicked him, and he just laughed.
You are one pathetic lump. Are you really gonna take his side? Look at that fat pig! He can't even kick right!
Jude had his gang of thugs put up posters of my face, edited to look like a pig's the next day. It was everywhere. The whole thing got so big that someone even spray painted "Oink Oink" in big red letters on our garage door. My parents finally decided to move. There, I made friends, and I met a girl who changed my life. Her name was Emily. And one day, when the boys at the new school were laughing at me for being bigger, she jumped in and high-kicked every single one of them until they were launched into the air and fell on the ground with loud thuds. Nobody bothered me again after that. She introduced me to her master, and I trained with her every day. Taekwondo became my life. Every kick I suffered from sparring, every attack I dodged, and every punch I launched, I only thought of Jude and how everyone called me weak. 2 months later, my parents moved back because of work, and I walked back into that school with my head held high. Nobody recognized me, until Seon-mi ran up to me and gave me a massive hug. You're back! All the girls noticed me. Is that really Alec? No way. Pig face Alec? You're joking, right? The girls followed me wherever I went, and so did Seon-mi. Jude was furious. He cornered me as he used to with his minions. You trying to pick a fight, Jude?
Why? Are you scared?
I see you're a chicken now, too.
But sure, I'll be fair. Let's have a one-on-one. Boys, don't interfere. He's mine.
Jude cocked his fist in the air. He charged at me, screaming. All I had to do was take one step to the side and he stumbled. I gently kicked him and he crashed into a bush, causing every girl watching to giggle and cheer. Jude was never taught to stop while he was ahead, and so he charged again, this time with a stick he picked up from the ground. I stood on one leg and extended a kick towards him as fast as a snake striking its prey. Then Jude's forehead ran straight into my foot. He hit the ground before you could even say, knockout! I took a picture of him, his face in the dirt, my smiling face above him, and immediately posted it. #based! Payback's not so good, is it, Jude? The crowd cheered. Girls and boys alike surrounded me and chanted my name. Seon-mi gave me a kiss on the cheek, and Jude's minions ran straight for the principal's office. I was expelled, and I never saw Seon-mi again. Half a decade later, I find myself working a boring desk job at a music production company. The whole office was compromised of girls, save for me and our boss. You'd think I'd be swimming in dates, but nobody ever said anything to me beyond the standard, hello, and good morning. And that was because of Caden, our boss. I don't know what it was, but all throughout my life, I seemed to always attract the company of guys who felt the need to belittle me. Caden was notorious for dating all the girls in the office, and he would tell anyone there that he'd fire them if they even looked at me. But at the time, I was starting to get into rap. The whole reason I started working there was because I wanted to get into music. No matter how much Caden tried to tie me to my desk and bury me with paperwork, the girls would still notice me when I would play the beats I'd been working on. Some of them would even send me secret notes encouraging me and suggesting I submit my demo tracks to them so they could send it into record labels. When Caden found out, he dragged me in front of everyone and made me play my songs. This is what you're all hyping about? This is some weak sauce lyrics. You know what? I'll put a stop to this nonsense once and for all. Let's take this thing to the people who know what they're talking about. I'm talking rap battle, fam! You, me, on the world stage. I want to see you fall flat with millions of people watching. Caden took my laptop where all my songs were and he dumped it into the office aquarium. Years of work. Countless nights of inspiration gone in one blink of an eye thanks to the whim of an insecure man-child. I couldn't help but feel low. And that was when Caden's attempt to embarrass me in front of all the girls backfired. Because instead of siding with him, they all defied his wishes and began comforting me. Every morning they'd ask me how I was, and at lunch they'd all sit with me presenting me with handmade lunchboxes filled with delectable dishes. This only fueled Caden's thirst for my downfall, and he made his good on his promise. A month later, we met at the world's most anticipated rap battle competition. He had an entourage of 20, most of them riders that his dad hired to help him win. After all, his dad's company would suffer if Caden lost to a mere intern. The crowd grew silent as the announcer stepped onto the stage.
And now, the bout you've all been waiting for! These two have some real-world grudge to settle, and they're fighting it out here on the world stage! It's time. Here they come. Caden Butler versus Alec Harlow!
The crowd erupted from their seats.
They were all ready to see me crushed. Line after line, Caden destroyed me. Hiring all those writers really paid off. Until, at the very end, when he made a fatal flaw. He got all up in my face, his spit showering me like a waterfall as he uttered his final verse. And I knew I couldn't let that disrespect go.
With every word that comes out, I'll make you feel that my mouth's a weapon, pointed straight at your face. I'll send you running to your mama in heaven.
I smiled. Your mouth's a weapon, really? That makes me shudder. No wonder your breath reeks like gunpowder. With one verse, I ended it all. The horns blew and the crowd cheered. I was given the trophy and the crowd bore me on their shoulders. But my triumph was short-lived. Using his dad's money and influence, Caden got me fired and destroyed my career before it even started. I was back to square one. I had to go back home with my tail between my legs. I couldn't recognize my hometown. The shop signs were hanging off their screws. The whole place was a ghost town. But despite that, there was a buzz in the air, and I saw why. Just as I got down the bus, I saw Seon-mi's face on a billboard. Her concert was that very same week. I hadn't seen her in ages. Last I heard, she went home to Korea, and it looked like it did her good. Now, she's a super famous singer. I tried to beg my sister to talk to Seon-mi. Maybe she could get me a job.
Are you dumb? Have you been living under a rock? Seon-mi is notoriously famous for only hiring girls. Besides, what use are you to her?
At least she got me in with her VVIP pass, and then I excused myself. I went into the gents' room and changed into Seon-mi merch and a skirt. I put a wig on, and then I pulled out a fake resume. As soon as I saw her handler, I winked at him and charmed him to talking to me.